All right, we are live in living color. This is Dr. Tony Alvarado, the host of the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. And I am so delighted that you all have joined us tonight live on Facebook and on YouTube. Listen, we want to give you a minute to get on with us tonight. So we're asking that if you're live with us tonight, that you'll let us know by weighing in and letting us know where you are logging in from. Tell us your city or where you are right now. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation with myself and our season 9 podcast guest. As many of you all know, I am the host of the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. And I am so delighted that we have a dynamic group of women who have agreed to be on with us tonight. You've already heard from many of them because you've heard them on the podcast. You've heard the conversations that we've had on the podcast. And tonight you get an opportunity to engage with our podcast guests live and in living color. I see you, Desiree Young. You're in the room tonight. Y'all tag somebody and let somebody know that Dr. Tony and the season 9 podcast guests are live tonight. I have with me some very, very powerful women. I'm going to take a minute and introduce all of them to us tonight, but I just want to give a minute for everybody to come on in and be a part of what we are doing on this evening. I believe it's going to be a blessing. I see you, Carla Sanders. I see you, Desiree. Give me some thumbs up. Let me know where you all are coming in from. Desiree, I know where you are. I believe you're in Stone Mountain. But let us know where you are coming in from so that we can know where you are and we can celebrate you for being in here with us on tonight. We are so excited about this conversation and this opportunity to gather with this powerful, empowering group of women who thought it not robbery to spend their evening with us Monday evening. All right, Carla, you're in Atlanta. Juanita, where are you, Juanita? I don't know. Where are you, Juanita? I don't know where that is. Deborah Patterson, Morrow, Georgia. Desiree Young, are you in Stone Mountain? I see you, Carla. All of you all that are online with us tonight, we appreciate you being here. We know that this is going to be a wonderful time for us to connect as women and to talk through some issues of self-care, health, and wellness. All right. So let me introduce our guests on tonight, our dialogue partners, rather, or family. We're all family, right? We're not guests. We are family. And I believe that this Juanita says my computer is doing its own thing. I'm in Ellenwood, right? All right, Ellenwood. All right. So we have with us tonight the dynamic Robin May. Will y'all help me welcome Robin May to our conversation tonight? Robin May is a coach. She is a pastor. She is a preacher. She is a mental health therapist and counselor. She is an author. She is a podcaster, a radio host. She is all the things. She is a mama. She is a wife. She's doing it all, like all of us. All right. You all know Representative Doreen Carter. Let's welcome Representative Doreen Carter, State Representative Doreen Carter, my representative. And I'm glad to have her. You all know she is no stranger to this podcast. She was with us in the month of March, right? Doreen, sharing her journey of concerning heart health and her initiative on Healthy Heart. What is it? The Healthy Heart Women's Campaign, the Go Red for Women. And so we were talking about her campaign and her journey with recovering, as she has recovered from 2 heart attacks.
One. God, just one.
One heart attack and stroke. And a stroke. Right. Yeah. And so she is a walking miracle.
Praise the Lord.
And now an advocate an advocate in teaching and bringing awareness. Later on, Dr. Jane Morgan is going to join us. She is the dynamic cardiologist who I met at Doreen's Go Red for Women luncheon, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
just a powerful woman of God. And so we'll introduce Dr. Morgan when she comes in. Dr. Jasmine Hardy,
Hi, everyone.
psychologist. If you listen to the podcast episode with Dr. Jasmine, as we talked about radical self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, self-love. It was phenomenal, our conversation with her. And so she is here with us tonight, and I'm so appreciative because it's hard to get Dr. Jasmine. She's pretty busy. And so I'm so glad she was available to be with us on tonight. And then everybody knows the fabulous Debrina Jackson Gandy, author, master life coach, author of Sacred Pampering Principles, of which we are using in our intentional self-care program, Debrina, and the women are loving it. And so I appreciate you for being here with us. You've been in tea time with us. You've been on the podcast with us, helping us understand what it means to do sacred self-care. And so I appreciate all of you, my sisters, for being a part of this self-care community with me as we are mining this thing out and working this thing out together. Welcome, one and all of you, to our podcast Talkback, and welcome to all of you who are online with us on tonight. Now, listen, this is a live conversation, which means it could go wherever we want it to go, right? It's not scripted. It's just we just having a cup of tea. We're gonna spill the tea. We're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna see what comes up from those that are with us online. Prepare your questions, ask your questions. If you listen to any of them on the podcast and you had a thought concerning something they said, if you want them to elaborate on something they said, put it in the chat and we'll go there on tonight. So I'm gonna start out by just throwing this out, women, with our panel. We know that all of us have been working in this space of mental health, self-care, wellness, coaching, and all those kind of things. So one of the things I want to get the conversation started with by just everybody just sharing a little bit of why these conversations are so important to women of color. Why do we need to have these conversations? Debrina, your book is specifically geared. It's an African American woman's guide to self-care and inner renewal. My podcast is dedicated to women of color. And so I just want us to talk about, why is this so important for our community to have these conversations? Anybody in any
I'll
order.
jump in. I'll jump in. I'll jump in. I'm Robin. And so the first thing, first of all, I'm honored to be on here with you, Dr. Tony, and with all of you ladies. Y'all are inspiring to me. I get excited when I get to be connected with amazing women who are walking out their purpose. It inspires me. Okay. So, the first thought that came to my mind is many of us, I think, can connect to being women of faith. Okay.
Mhm, mhm,
So there's this dynamic as a therapist, and Dr. Tony, I shared this with you. As a
mhm,
therapist, it is very interesting when I have the opportunity, which is most of the clients that I have,
mhm,
counseling women who are women of color and women of faith.
mhm,
It's a very interesting dynamic.
mhm,
It's probably my most challenging work, although it's the work that I prefer. And I'm going to tell you why it's challenging. Because when you combine the historical experience of Black women,
mhm,
then you combine our understanding, whether it is faulty or not, of what it means to be a woman of faith.
mhm,
Somehow that combination has communicated to us that we are superheroes, that we should
mhm,
never get tired, that
mhm,
we can do everything with no break, that we don't need any help. I got it by myself. I can handle it. I can carry all the things. We've bought into that idea. And not only that, because self care soul care therapy has not
Mm.
always been prevalent in our community,
Mhm.
we think that mama them, grandmama them, Nana, we think she was handling it without any challenge, without
Oh,
any problems. We
oh,
are looking at her as our shero without realizing she probably needed to be sitting on my couch. A
oh,
lot of them do sit on my couch when they have permission
uh-huh.
to tell what's really going on. When I say permission,
Mhm.
we all are adults. We don't have to really be given permission,
Right.
but when we are given permission to be real honest and real vulnerable without judgment,
Yeah.
those same women we've been holding up as sheroes will say, "Oh no, baby, I almost lost my mind.
Right,
No, baby,
right.
I was exhausted. No, I
Uh-huh.
desperately needed some help." So I think to your question, the combination of both is that we are chasing an ideal
Mhm.
that is unrealistic and that is unfair to our humanity.
Yeah.
And so I believe these conversations open up dialogue because when I can say, "Oh no, baby, I'm tired," and then you can say, "Oh no, I had to go take a time by myself," and then you start realizing you're not crazy and that
Right.
it's okay to care for your soul.
It is okay. And I did I'm so glad you connected it with our faith because on Mother's Day, I preached on Mother's Day and I talked about Hannah's grief. And
Mm.
I have preached about Hannah a million times, right? As a preacher, as a woman of faith, a pastor, and women's conferences all over. But this time when I went to the text, I saw some things differently about Hannah that I had never seen before. Usually, when we preach Hannah, we go straight to the birth of the baby, Samuel, and all of that. But leading up to all of that, it says specifically in the text that Hannah was grieved, that
Mm.
Hannah was vexed in her spirit to the point where she could neither eat or sleep. And I
Wow.
talked about the fact that Hannah was depressed and
Mhm.
all the things that she was going through, even when she was in the temple, she said to Eli, "Out of my grief and my complaint have I poured out, have I spoken to the Lord."
Mm.
And so, and I talked to them about the fact that you can grieve and worship at the same time, and that it's okay. And and I had so many people tell me they had never looked at Hannah in that way because we are, particularly as African Americans and as people of faith, and if you come from some faith traditions like Pentecostal traditions or whatever, we are triumphalists in our theology,
Mhm.
meaning we have to always be overcomers, right?
Mm.
And we have
Mhm.
to always be, a champion or whatever. But even if you look at the Psalms, there are more Psalms of lament than there are of any type of psalm,
Mm.
meaning the psalmist always dealt with their real trauma, their real fear, their real situation, and then they would shift to worship and praise, right?
They
Mm.
were
And we
honest.
have to give people time and space to discuss their trauma,
Mhm.
realize what their trauma has been, right? Then they mask it. There's never a place for them to tell the truth about it, and thus
Right.
they can never move on or be healed. So
Mm.
Absolutely.
and I agree with you by that whole permission piece to me means not judging people when they do say, "I'm tired,"
Absolutely.
or "This is where I really am." That's good, Robin.
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I had a thought. I think that hello everyone. I'm Dr. Hardy. Grateful to be here. Um, so I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of the true meaning of resilience and strength. My mother tells a story about how when my grandfather passed, he passed in '96, and he was the pastor of our church, and so she was the assistant pastor. So as soon as he passed, she took over the church, and she talked about how the funeral, she was crying. And I think she said my grandmother looked at her and was like, Lavelle, we have to be strong for the church and for the members. And my mother was like, she looked at her and was like, that's my daddy. That's my, what do you mean? That's my, you know, and so there's this idea that strength and resilience looks like not crying, not telling people what we're going through, um,
Mhm.
pushing through, right? Um, not acknowledging what we're struggling with, right?
Yeah,
What we're lacking. That looks like strength, that looks like resilience. And it's not. It's not, right? And
Mhm.
so we end up killing ourselves
yeah.
trying to look strong for other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then
And
I think,
that strong black woman motif or that
right,
myth that
right,
hmm
right. And it's not a real thing, right? True strength and true courage is saying I am struggling. True strength is saying no. That is big. I learned that after grad school. I started saying no, and it was so freeing. I was like, this is fabulous. I started saying no too much, honestly, I think. And I had to pull back a little bit. But I think that with self-care, a lot of people think, okay, with self care, I'm going to gain a lot. And you do, but you also lose a lot. You may lose some people, you may lose some relationships,
hmm
you may lose just some things that you've become comfortable with. Um,
hmm
and I think just as a people, especially as Black women, we want to hold on to that. Um,
hmm
a lot of times I think our self worth is tied into those things,
hmm
right?
hmm
Um, but there's beauty in losing.
Mm.
We
It's
realize that.
beauty in losing. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Uh-huh. That's good.
Yeah, and so I think when you get to the point, like we talked about that radical acceptance piece, when you get to the point where I'm okay with that, I'm okay with losing whatever, even if it's how people perceive me, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with losing that perception, people's perception of me, if that means I get true happiness, true joy, right? A
Mm-hmm.
true relationship with God, whatever else that we're gaining, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when you start to really live, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I was thinking back to what Robin was talking about, and I think talking about the Black community. And I can really only speak about my community and my tribe and how we grew up. We grew up in a household where, you kept your business in the house. If it happened in the house, it stayed in the house. And so it became a philosophy that you didn't share. And it was interesting that, going to Newburgh where Robin, actually Dr. Tony and Robin, where we met,
Uh-huh.
and getting involved in the counseling ministry, it was so weird for me to be trained as a biblical counselor and listening to people while at the same time in my head, my mama said, you keep your business in the house, right? And I think that was probably part of my liberation. And it probably, I won't say probably, I know it would have benefited my mother, because one of the things that my mom went to the grave without ever really talking about was being raped by a relative
Okay.
as a child, and being raised by somebody other than her mother. And it wasn't until after my mother died that we found out who it was. And so we're thinking, wow, this man was at our house all the time with family stuff, right? So you think about all of that and all of the, just how we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And now I believe it is our duty to allow people to be free. And so some of my friends be like, girl, you talk too much. But I'll put a caveat that I'm talking to people that I feel safe with.
Okay.
I will
I
say
got you.
that. Now
That's
everybody don't get to come in,
right.
but
Yeah.
I think, but I think the more that we do that, and even with my grandmother, died of a massive heart attack, and then my mother died in her sleep, and so I thought, even though that happened with them, I never thought it would happen to me, because I was in this denial, because after all, I'm Doreen Carter, right? And so those things we didn't talk about begin to build, and some of those other things that contribute to that. And I know we'll talk more about that, but I think the more we allow people to be free, and Robin said, give permission, we give ourselves permission to
Mm-hmm.
be vulnerable.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I say, when you practice, or when we practice self-care, we give other people permission to
Yes.
practice self-care as well. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, just from watching me, that is giving them the courage and the strength to take care of themselves. But even for you, for those of us who um, uh, work with people. We may be supervisors or pastors, or we have people on our team, that help us be who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so it when I me practicing self-care makes me more sensitive even to those who are working with me, that when they say, hey, I need a break, or sometimes when I see them not taking a break, pushing them to say, hey, you need to know, no, it's okay for you to rest, it's okay for you not to, it's okay for you to be away. You know what I'm saying? So I give myself permission, but I also give them permission to
Mm,
take a break, you know what I'm saying, and take care of themselves,
yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Right.
Sabrina, we haven't heard your voice tonight. I know you have something to say about this. You wrote a whole book
Well,
about it.
I just love what Robin, Jasmine, and Doreen have said so far, and I concur. And what I would also add in there is, as we talk about how we've been in the past, to me, it is a lot of it is post-enslavement residue.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that notion of we must be strong, where does that come from? A posture of survival that was critical and necessary, that is still in our cellular memory, still in a lot of our behavioral patterns, even today. And
Yeah.
Mm.
so one of the reasons I'm so excited about this conversation
Wait,
is we find
Sabrina,
ourselves in a
before you move on, I want you to put a pin in. I want to put a pin in it because I want you to go back to something you just said. You said that because of this, it's post enslavement trauma, right? And
residue.
residue,
Residue.
residue, and then but you said it's and some of it is embedded in our cellular makeup because of the
Memory.
memory, cellular memory. Say more about that.
Yeah. So we're all interconnected. And even in scripture, it talks about the sins of the father will be visited on the sons. That means that there are
Right.
patterns, belief systems that if we
Mm.
don't heal them, elevate them, change them, challenge them, they will show up in our next generation. And
Ah,
so and so here we are with these ways of being that have characterized Black women not able to say no. I am the Atlas. I can do it all myself, rebuking help. But where does that come from? And I believe it is that leftover residue from a
mm,
survival way of being. And so
mm,
we have an opportunity in this generation of Black women to create a brand new script and belief system that is not the residue of the enslavement survival mindset. And
yeah,
so
Amen.
yeah.
we have an opportunity to create a new paradigm, right? A new foundation and a new framework that where our new story is I have no problem saying no and honoring my energy or saying yes if that's what's appropriate. I have no problem
Right.
asking for help with no guilt. I
Mhm,
have no
mhm.
problem resting. I have no problem receiving graciously. I have no problem feeding my feminine energy and learning how to flow and be fluid and not so do checklist oriented. That is what I'm excited about becoming our new reality because of these kinds of
Yes.
conversations and the work that each of us is doing in our respective lanes.
Yeah.
And when we think about the body, thinking about it as what it really is, a divine body temple. And
Mhm,
so that means I have the privilege, the honor, and the delight of caring for her royally. So that
mhm,
means I rest her and
mhm.
I feed
Yeah.
her nourishing foods and behaviors that are correlate to understanding my body is a divine temple.
Yeah.
And lastly, say that what I'm excited about too is that we now can begin to do the healing work and that our ancestors, even our mamas, our grandmamas didn't get a chance to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a new opportunity that we get to be a part of because healing has not happened. Deep forgiveness work has not happened. The cleaning out of the
Mm.
cellular memory has not happened. So those are some things I'm also really excited about when we have this conversation about
Mhm.
self-care and sacred self-care.
Yeah.
Amen.
That's so good. Juanita
Amen.
said, I got so tired of being I'm in survival mode. So I made a choice to work on me and move into thriving mode. Wow.
Amen.
Good for you, Juanita. Good for you. Yeah. And some I heard years ago that reminds me of something I heard many, many years ago. Our pastor, Bishop Lafayette Scales, came to our church one year, and we were talking about change, right? And change management. And he said something that I've never forgotten, and I've adopted it, and I've even shared it with people. He said, when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain that it takes to change, it
Mhm.
will change.
Mhm.
So there's pain that's associated with staying the same, and there's pain associated with change. We
Mhm.
just got to decide which pain we want to go through, right? Because healing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Healing work can be painful.
Mhm.
You know,
Mm.
it's just like surgery. You're in pain, so you may have to have a surgical procedure, right,
Mhm.
to fix whatever the pain is. But the surgical procedure is pain, but it's healing pain, and so it's a different
Mhm.
result. Pain is pain, but there's a different result to it. And so I think when we get to the place where we are sick and tired of being sick and tired, like Juanita said, then we change. We do what we need to do. Um, one of my writers, one of the uh, uh, um, fitness coaches that I work out with on Peloton, when I do some of the Peloton workouts, one of the uh, fitness coaches there, she says, first the challenge and then the change. So,
Mm.
you
You
know,
know, Dr. Turner, I want to jump in there because I posted this on Instagram the other day. I said it like this, talking about experiencing a shift in your life. I said, your despair must be greater than your defense, and your frustrations must be greater than your fears. So when I talked
mm,
about your despair has to be greater than your defense, is what I find often when working with the many people that I work with, is that we tend to defend our dysfunction. And
mm.
many
Okay.
times we don't even
Somebody
realize
put that in the chat. Your despair has to be
must be
greater than.
greater than your defense.
Mm-hmm.
And your frustrations must be greater than your fears. And so
Mm,
when I talk about defending your dysfunction, this is why I preach about slowing your life down, because we don't even realize we're defending our dysfunction. But when we say things like, this is how it's always been, or this is how I've always done it, or
oh,
when we say this is how mama them did it, or when we're defending dysfunctional behavior.
yeah.
And many times again, we don't even realize it.
Oh,
And
this is
Right.
then
just me. This is me.
it's just who I am.
Mhm,
Oh my
mhm.
God, I said that today to somebody. I said, you know what? I like me and I'm not changing.
Absolutely. And so, and but see, Doreen, that's you. Y'all know Doreen is my girl, and I think this is what's so interesting about that. We say these little cliches and not
Uh-huh.
realizing how those cliches are keeping us
Mhm.
stuck.
Mhm.
However, with all of that, so I preach it as well. I do want to say this though. We have to be careful that we don't underestimate the serious power of trauma
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
serious reality that everybody has not even been given the exposure to
Mm,
Mm.
even know that
mm,
change is available.
Yeah.
And
mm.
so,
Yes.
Say
many
that
times
again. Slow down. Say it again.
okay, and
Everybody has
I
not
laid
been.
that I
Mm-hmm.
laid that foundation because I want to admit I'm the preacher of this message. Your fear has to be, your frustration got to be greater than your fear. I'm the preacher of this message and I believe it. But I do not want to minimize the real reality
Mhm.
of what trauma does to the
Oh.
way people function, the way they process, the way their body feels.
Mhm.
And many times, and one of the beautiful opportunities I have to sit with so many women is, and people, period, is that I've had the privilege of hearing people's stories. And
Mm,
I'm telling you,
Mm.
when
wow.
you begin to hear some of the stories that people experience, it's
Mm,
almost like privilege. Watch this. Privilege is not just about white folk.
mm,
Mhm.
mm, mm,
Many of us are
Yep.
Mm.
living. through the lens of privilege.
You're right.
And
You
so we
said
don't
you
Yes.
better
even
say that.
understand
Hmm.
that trauma can literally paralyze you. So that's one.
Yeah.
Or I had a client ask me, Robin, is it possible to even believe that a healthy relationship is attainable if you've never
Mm.
seen it in
Mm.
your whole family bloodline? You don't see it with any it was a serious question. They said, this person told me, I feel like that's something on TV. I've never
Mm.
seen
Oh
a
wow.
really healthy relationship. So is it
Mhm.
possible for my brain to conceptualize that I can
Mm.
have something different? So when we are, I'm only saying that because I want to normalize that for somebody who may be watching. I
Mhm.
don't want you to feel that you are just not strong enough or you're not pushing hard enough. There's a real reality of what you may be experiencing. And so I would say to you, if that resonates with you, and if what I said resonates, whether you look at this a year down the line, God sent you here to hear this conversation for a reason.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
just hold on to that little bit and
Mhm.
find somebody that can help you begin to navigate your journey so that you can begin to believe that it's possible. So I just wanted to throw that
Period.
out there because
And I
it's a
think
real
we're
reality.
all here as representatives that it is possible and that we've all been there in some way or form
Right.
and have had to reach out to get help. We didn't get here by ourselves.
No.
Where we are,
Yeah.
and it's been a journey, and we're not where we're going to be on this
Mhm.
Right.
spectrum or on this journey. In my estimation, I feel like we're still, growing, and we're still learning, and we're still, some traumas don't reveal itself until we get to certain places and stages in our life,
Yeah.
right? That
Right.
and so and then we have to peel that thing back and see, okay, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
No,
Mm.
yeah, that's really really good, and I'm glad you brought up the idea that many of us are speaking from a privileged position in some ways, right? But I think that's why it's so important that we go back and get our sisters.
Mm.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it
Yes.
right there, Dr.
Yes.
Tony.
I would
That's
That's
it.
also
it.
add,
Yes.
Dr.
Everybody
Tony, that
behind. Mm-hmm. Go ahead,
I was
Sabrina.
going to say what's so awesome though, even if you haven't seen it, even if you haven't experienced it, we have this ability to have a vision that is not tied to our 3D experience.
Mm.
So whenever, for example, in my courses, I have women start with a vision. And they always know that there is a vision possible, though they may not have yet experienced it or lived it. So
Right.
even though our physical existence may not yet demonstrate or have
Mm-hmm.
evidence of
Okay.
what our heart's desire is, it is amazing to me how every single time when you ask a woman to share her vision, that is her heart's desire for that life area, relationships, body, spirit, mind, body, I'm sorry, relationships, et cetera, she always has a vision. And
Mm.
that gives us a place to
Mm.
start so that
Yeah.
we're not just the dark, only having our own lived experience are those of our family members as our reference. So I
Right.
just want
Yeah.
to
I hear
share
you.
how that is to have another place we can go to where that desire can live until it is manifested in our actual lives. And the other thing too is that because to the point Robin was saying, so many of us have not seen it modeled, whatever it is. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
we have an opportunity, not from just the suffering and the frustration creating change, but the power of new possibility creating change, the power of desire creating change, the
Yes.
power of that
Desire.
vision creating change. And even that is a new paradigm because so much of our changes come about because we tired of what we've been experiencing. But I'm saying let's have the change come about, not because we tired and at the bottom of the well and the rope and hit rock bottom, but because we know there's a new possibility available And there are those that can help guide, lead, and direct to this land of milk and honey or more promise, which
You
Right.
means a
know,
new
and that
possibility
and
based in
I
that
agree with
self
you.
care way of living.
I agree with you, Debrina, and let me and I have a lived experience with that, and what I mean by that is, you know, the scripture says in Ecclesiastes that God has set eternity in the hearts of men, and that what that says to me is that somewhere in, because we were created by God, that somewhere in us, even though there's been dysfunction, wherever we came from, somewhere in us, God has set something in us that speaks to who He created us to be. Right?
Yes.
Right? There's
Absolutely.
some, and but oftentimes, because of lived experiences, because of history, because of maybe environment, trauma, or whatever, those things are covered up, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
which is why we need conversations like this, spaces
Yeah.
like this, programs
Yes.
like your program, Debrina, programs like my program, programs like what you're doing, Robin, and what you're doing, all
Mhm.
of us, the work that we're doing, we come in and help unearth that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We help
Right.
dig that mind and unearth the stuff that sickness and trauma and rape and negative conversations
Mhm.
and poverty and whatever has happened in our lives. We help dig that thing out and dig out that eternity that God has placed in the heart of every man
Amen.
and
Hey,
every
you know what? So you know what's funny is I'm laughing. I'm laughing, but I'm real serious about it. So one of the things when Robin we were talking, and I shared that I was tickled because I literally said this to somebody today, right? But at the same time, it's multifaceted because it took a lot.
Yes.
It took a lot for me to even get to the point where I like me, right?
Yes.
Because so many other people had so much to say about me that I was at one point thinking something was wrong with me. But I
Mhm.
like me. While at the same time, there's still some
Yes.
room
Right.
in
right.
my
Yes.
privilege.
Mhm.
Yes, because several things can be true at the same
Yes,
time.
That's right.
yes,
Several things can be true at the same time. You can be dope and amazing and also have some areas that need some
Of
work,
course.
right? And
Exactly.
so being able to say, I am absolutely the bomb. But baby,
right.
sometimes this mindset of mine is a trip. So being able
See?
to say that is a part of
Yes.
the journey.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what? And so even taking it back to like for the health and being heart healthy, right? And I said this to you guys. I don't even know if you really heard what I said. So I have history of heart disease in my family, right? And so I never thought it wouldn't have happened to me, right? Because when I say because I'm Doreen Carter, Robbie, you probably understand when I say that. But Doreen Carter needed to change her behavior around food.
Right.
Now, to be healthy, and because there are well the doctor almost told us stops talking about the some things that we did inherit, but there are some things that we shouldn't even eat. Going back to what you were saying, to bring about that enslaved residue. So we eat some of the way we do because of what we saw historically through patterns in our families, and that stuff is killing us, right? But it's like for me living in denial, thought I could continue to eat like that and wasn't nothing gonna happen.
Right, 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 right. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah.
Dr. Tony. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Jasmine.
Um, so I had a thought, kind of a two pronged thought. Because we were talking about earlier about as far as being women in faith as well. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I know that's something I've struggled with is the part that God plays in my healing process, his role in my healing process. Um, and so it's two parts to that. So one, um, my last job, I worked for the most part in my career, I worked with adult males who are either currently locked up or have been locked up. In my last job, I worked just with sex offenders, and so um, we're working with them as far as helping them understand why they engaged in sexual perpetration and sexual violence and things like that. But we would talk about their relationships. And what we would realize is that during those conversations, they would realize that they were also victims of sexual abuse. But they did not realize it until we had those conversations, right? So, Dr. Tony, you mentioned earlier that a lot of times the trauma is not even exposed until people start to begin that healing process, right? And so when you talk about your relationship with God, and it was something that didn't really hit me until later on. We're in this therapy session for 90 minutes, right? And you have this 45-minute block to talk about whatever you're talking about. And during that 45 minutes, you learn that this relationship that you had, or this interaction that you had for years was consensual, or that it was normal, or that it was appropriate. And now you're learning that that it was abuse. And now at the end of those 90 minutes, I'm like, all right, I'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? And so as a believer, and obviously, it's important that we have those relationships with other women, other individuals, other groups, with communities that can help us through that process. But at some point, you are alone. You are by yourself, whether it's late at night, whether it's when you at work in the back, and that thing hits you, right? Crap, I'm just realizing what that really was, right? These guys would realize, oh my God, that was abuse. And then I leave for the day. And we talk about privilege, right? I get to help this person realize and then I get to leave. Right? This individual is locked up right now. I work at a prison. So even now I work with these guys. A guy said the other week he had this relationship with this woman. And I said, you were a victim. Right. So we had that session, and then I left and I went home. Not immediately, but at the end of the day, I left and I went, and now he's got to sit with that in this 4x4 cell.
Speak, Dr. Jasmine.
And so in those moments, right, when you don't have somebody to call, when people aren't around, when people don't understand, I think leaning into your relationship with God, because now I have to sit with this. Now I have to try to understand and make sense of this thing that happened, right? So that's one part of it, not minimizing the role that God plays, especially when somebody is not around. Or even if people are, but we don't have the courage to talk to them. Because even that, now I'm telling you that you were a victim of abuse, and now you got to go back to a unit with 300 other men. They don't want to hear that. No. And so what do you do with that information, right? What do we do with that information once we hear this truth? And now we don't know what to do with this. So that's one thing. Secondly, and I'm be quick. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. I am not a patient person at all. At all. And I remember at the top of 2022, and it's funny because the person that I had this conversation with, they're not even in my life anymore. We were friends for 20 years and we're no longer friends. However, this was one of the last good conversations I had with them. And at the top of 2022, we were talking about goals and things that we want to do for the year. And she asked me, she said, "Are you going to ask God to help you with your patience?" And I said, "No." I said, "I have no desire." I have no desire to work on that, because I said, if I put that out there, he's going to put me in situations, right? Where now I have, and I'm like, I just want people to move quicker. I just want them to happen at the rate that I want them to happen, and we will all be okay. And so I literally said, I'm not praying for that. I know and I understand what comes with that, right? However, I forgot who it was that said that earlier. Doreen, I think when you mentioned, I know that I have this going on over here, but I still have this stuff to work on, right? And so I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to ask God for patience. However, I'm asking God to move in these areas of my life, right? But not realizing that he can't move over here because I'm not practicing patience. So it wasn't until last week I was having a conversation with someone, and I told him, I said, I literally made up my mind that I wasn't going to ask God to help me with patience, but I asked him for other things.
And guess what?
And now he said, okay, so
Oh,
I'm
he's
gonna
answering your prayer.
yeah, you didn't, and so it's almost like I asked him in a
I'm gonna
roundabout
give
way.
you.
Realize
We gonna do you like it did Solomon. I'm gonna give you what you didn't ask for.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so I said, okay, and he's showing himself. He is being God, and it is blowing my mind. But I'm having to be patient, and it is killing me.
Carla, Carla said, either way, he will give them to you, willing
Yes,
or unwilling. You can go willingly
yes.
or unwillingly.
This is
Mhm.
very unwilling. I am not a willing participant at all.
Deborah Patterson said, girl, that patience pill is no joke. However, God will send you
Yes,
the situations that will teach you.
Oh,
absolutely.
Jesus.
Absolutely. But I'm grateful for it. I'm pushing through. It is difficult. But I know that he's doing it for a reason, and I know that whatever is on the other side of this, it will be worth it. You talk about a challenge. What'd you say earlier, Dr. Some challenge,
It's first the
then
challenge,
change,
then the change.
then the change. Right? I'm in the
That's what
challenge
they say
part
when we're
right
working out. Lift
now.
them
Absolutely.
weights. First the challenge, then the change. We want change, but we don't want challenge.
Yep. And so
And
that's where I'm at
Well,
right now with the I'm in the challenge, and it is kicking my behind. I'm gonna tell you that right
oh,
now.
it's
But I think sometimes we downplay or we forget God's role in our healing journey.
Mhm.
And that during that process, right, my mother says it's for us to look at in a mirror and not the window, right? We're looking at what everybody else is doing, but he wants us to look in that mirror. What do I need to change? What do
Yeah,
I need to address? What do I need to be honest about?
yeah.
Um, and in that, it just kind of hit me that I've blocked so many of my own blessings by not asking him to help me with patience.
Yeah, right,
You
Right
know
right.
what,
there.
Dr. Jasmine, what's so interesting to me about that, y'all? I just posted this on Facebook the other day. What's interesting when we talk about soul work and self-care,
Mhm.
when you say God's role in it, y'all, how many of us preach the scripture? I can do all things through Christ who
Right.
strengthens me, right? Baby, we preach it, we
Yep.
teach it, and we say it. But most of the time, we're saying it in conjunction with, I can get that job. I can
Mhm.
lose that weight. I can start that business.
Yep.
But how many times do we say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, including receiving the patient pill
Right.
that I need to receive, including I can forgive,
Mhm.
including
Uh-huh.
I can go ask for
Yep.
forgiveness,
Yep.
including I can keep my mouth quiet. I
Woo,
can do all
Lord,
things through
Lord,
Christ
Lord,
who
Lord,
strengthens me. I
Lord.
can keep my mouth quiet when I want to speak. We
Yep.
never talk about those character building things
Yep.
when we're talking about the fact that we can do all things through Christ that
Mhm.
strengthens me. And I think that level of honesty and that level of transparency is very real. And I love what you said about the people that you work with, the men that you work with. We give them this aha, they see
Mhm.
this revelation,
Mhm.
and then they literally have to sit with that.
Yep.
And depending on their coping strategies, what do they do with it?
Right. Yep.
Because some of this is causing people to have to look at themselves in a way that they
Mhm.
most people don't want to see themselves as having been victimized.
Right. Yep.
And so you
Mhm.
got to do
Yep.
something with it. So the question I always ask my clients, what do you do with the stuff that you begin to understand about you? Many
Mhm.
times my sister and I say we put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Baby, I just put that on the shelf.
Mhm.
Honey, I just put but after a
Mhm.
while that shelf is filled and it's falling over
Yep.
because we
Ooh.
haven't learned the coping strategies
Mhm.
to deal with the real realities
Mhm.
that we are facing, and we haven't been given the space, safe
Mhm.
spaces to be brutally honest. Because Dr. Jasmine, when you were talking about the men you work with and them having to come to that real reality, then they
Mhm.
have to go back to their cell. And you talked about God's role in the healing. Let me tell y'all what first came up for me, because I'm a realist.
Mhm.
And I know that we were taught by the old school saints, who I highly respect, that you don't question God, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
However, I think
That's
we
faulty.
have to give them room to say,
Mhm.
God, why would you even
Yeah.
allow this
You.
to happen?
Mhm.
Right.
As
Yep.
a part of the healing, and that
Well,
whoever's
God never
watching,
said we don't question God. I don't know what,
where did
God
that
never
come
said that.
from? And
And
so if
all
we
through
don't
the
give space for
scripture they
that,
did. They asked questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So they may have to get to that place where they're asking why. And all of us have had those questions. God,
Mhm.
why did this happen? What uh why was this allowed to happen in my life?
Yes.
That's really, really good. And Dr. Jasmine, I applaud you on the work That's some real work
Amen.
right there. That's some
Baby,
real
that's
Amen.
some
work.
real
Yeah.
You're
work.
seeing people at their worst,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But then
Yeah.
you got to help them begin to see themselves in a better light,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because if they
Yep.
don't begin to see themselves in a better light, then they can continue on in those behaviors.
Yep. And these people become they become our neighbors again, you
Mhm.
know. And so you'll hear a lot of individuals throw them under the jail, throw away the key, and I get that. But
Mhm.
most times the key is not thrown away, right? They come back out, and so
And we
being
want them to come out whole.
exactly,
Amen.
absolutely. Just and I was having a group last week, and the guys were talking. I forgot what we were how it was brought up, but they were kind of making these assumptions about certain individuals. And, you know, when they, because they have poor coping skills and poor frustration tolerance and all of these things, right? When they make assumptions about people or they become angry, that can very quickly turn into violence or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
asked them, I said, you know, you engage in certain behaviors based off assumptions that you've made, right? Or these thinking errors that you have. I said, but you don't want people to make assumptions about you. I said, once you get out, right? You're a convicted felon. That's a name all in itself. I said, as soon as somebody knows that, as soon as somebody hears that, they make assumptions about you. I said, now, is that fair? Just yes or no, right?
Mm.
They said no. I
Mm.
said, right. I said, so why is it that you want people to extend this grace to you and you aren't practicing that now?
Well,
Right.
can we
Mm.
turn that conversation just a little bit
Mhm.
toward that? Because I think we do that to ourselves as well
Right.
when we talk about
Right.
self grace and self
Right.
forgiveness,
Yep.
self love. You
Yep.
know, and something you just said that we our behaviors are based on these assumptions that we make. So
Yep.
what kind of
Mm.
assumptions, and I'm throwing this out to you all and
Mhm.
to the people, the women that are on with us tonight, if you're enjoying this conversation, please let us know. If you have questions, put them in the comments so that we can answer your questions. We want this we want to not just be talking to each other, but we want to talk to you. And so if you have a question or you want to make a comment based on what you're hearing us saying tonight, put something in the comments so we can address those questions. Okay. Somebody said, I'm sorry, were my toes in your way, ladies? Oh, somebody said we was on their on their toes.
Oh,
Elle said we were were her toes on the way, in the way. They might have been, sis, but it's okay. We love you. We love you. All right. All right. So what kind of assumptions do we make about ourselves
Mhm.
that you do that may lead to some of the just I would say maybe more unhealthy patterns in our lives or our lack of
Mhm.
sacred self-care? What do you all say to that? Like, what kind of assumptions have we made about ourselves, or have you seen maybe you've made, or other women that you work with, without calling any names, but just scenarios?
hmm.
So, Dr. Tony, before we move to that question on assumption, I wanted to just go back to something Dr. Jasmine pointed out, which I think is really critical about discussing patience. And we have an opportunity in this new era, I'm going to call it, where we now can have sacred self-care as a centerpiece in how we live and move. The first generation of Black women, maybe on a massive scale, to be able to have that be real. But so often in our church traditions, the ask that we were told to put forth during prayer was about things that we wanted to have happen outside of us, or praying for someone's healing or their health if they were in the hospital. We weren't necessarily taught or had it modeled how the ask can also be about self-illumination, blind spots I have, underdeveloped areas, parts of my character that need refining and elevating. So
Yeah.
we want to normalize that it isn't just about praying for things outside of us or for others, but those asks
Yep.
absolutely should include what would support our own development and what those
Oh,
I call it
that's so
underdeveloped
good.
areas are.
Yep.
And yes,
That's
you
so
will then have
good.
experiences to cultivate the very thing you
Mhm.
asked to develop, and you will be challenged around the very thing you
Yep.
said you want to develop. But
Mhm.
spiritual development works like a ladder, and you do not move to the next higher level of your own personal soul evolution, development, and spiritual maturity unless you get the teachings and learnings at the level you're at. So, so that's part of what keeps elevating, receiving more and more blessings, expanding our capacity to receive, is we put those asks forward during prayer time that aren't just about praying for XYZ, but now putting those kinds of
That
prayers for
internal
patience,
work.
prayers for
Mhm,
softening my
mhm.
heart, etc. Secondly, in every single course I do that's on personal development, we always include doing forgiveness work. Now, there's a
Mm.
full 5-step process doing full and comprehensive forgiveness, but I always include 1 or 2 steps, time constraints, whatever. And it amazes me how unfamiliar we are with what constitutes forgiveness work versus awareness or self reflection or journaling, which are all very useful, but are not synonyms for forgiveness work. And and how much misinformation, misteaching, and not moving people through a forgiveness process that people have not experienced in their churches, etc. So we can't assume that when we say healing work or forgiveness work that women actually know what we mean, because I poll women. Well, first tell me what you think forgiveness is. All of the misconceptions, the inaccuracies. It's staggering. Before we even move into an exercise or the steps, I first have to just correct women so they know what it is and what it isn't. And 98% of the women that are drawn to my body of work identify as Christian women. So it vexes my heart that here we are being in services
Mm,
year
mm.
after year, hour after hour, Sunday after Sunday. And so many of us haven't been led through a forgiveness process in church, which is the place it should happen of all places, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
how or uh, misunderstood is forgiveness. So I just wanted to put that in there because I think it's essential, because so many of us are unhealed and we
Yeah,
aren't being led through those processes.
forgiveness.
And a
Yeah,
lot of times we
yeah.
keep stuff on therapy. Therapy modality has not necessarily been designed to include forgiveness work. So
Mm.
I just wanted to put that in there. It's essential. It is essential. It's a cornerstone. Every module, every program design will always include some degree of forgiveness work. And then if it's a live retreat, then we move through all 5 steps, live 3D.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I just wanted to also include about the asks and
Okay.
forgiveness.
Ask and forgiveness.
Mhm. Thank
That's
you.
so good. That is so good. And I
Thank
appreciate you bringing up the fact that the ask has to be more than things on the eternal, external. It needs to be more
Mm.
internally the things. This didn't David say, created me a clean heart? I
Mhm.
mean, he was dealing with some real stuff there, internal stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to go deeper, you know, than just
Right.
the surface,
Yep.
you know,
Yes. Yes.
because it doesn't matter if I'm a train wreck on the inside. What
Mhm.
difference does it make what I make in my salary, or what size house I have, or car I drive, if I'm a train wreck on the inside,
Yep.
right?
Say something that's very unpopular. Okay, so this is something that I get so much pushback about, and I'm
We
okay
got a
with it.
couple of questions too. I'm gonna throw a question out there in a second, Robin. As soon as you say what you're saying.
Okay, and it's really in alignment with what you ask about the assumptions that we make.
Uh-huh.
And this is the thing that I say that's unpopular, and I try to flesh it out as much as I can because I know it can be sensitive. I believe what often happens when we talk about the assumptions that we make about ourselves or others, I think we have to rewind a little bit and talk about what is the process of truly understanding me, understanding how I show up,
Mhm.
understanding how I show up with others, understanding how I am receiving things, how others are receiving things. So here is the unpopular statement that I often make. I understand that I don't care about what people think about me, and I don't care what they say about me, and it don't matter. I understand that that's popular.
Mm.
But I particularly think that taking that too far is dangerous.
Yep.
Well, I
I
Mhm.
think that
believe
people that take that really far really do care.
they do. And I think we're just not
Mhm.
I think it's critically important that we create safe spaces. Y'all know y'all don't know, but Dr. Tony, you know I preach this a lot. Safe spaces with identified people who will tell us the truth
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
ourselves
Mhm.
because you can
Mhm.
only see you through a filter of you. You
Mhm.
have
Right.
no idea how others are receiving you. And so I say a safe space. Now, I don't receive everybody's opinion about me, but I have a very clear circle of people who will say, ma'am, that there,
Mhm.
that was showing, right? I know you. And so when we start talking about the assumptions that we make about ourselves, I think we first have to create those spaces where we can really get a reflection of what are, because y'all, some of our internal dialogue
Mhm.
is so automatic that
Yep.
we don't even realize it.
Mhm.
We're not even
Mhm.
realizing that that's
Mhm.
something that you should
Mhm.
challenge.
Yep.
There are
Mhm.
some automatic thoughts that I have, particularly around finances, that
Mhm.
when the people in my life highlight it, I'm like, my God,
Mhm.
that poverty mentality can just show up without me even realizing it.
Realizing.
So some of the
Mhm.
assumptions we make, I don't believe all of them we are aware. We don't even know that that's
The
something we
blind
should be
spots.
challenging.
Mhm. Mhm.
Exactly. We all have
Mhm.
blind spots. We don't even know that that's something we should be challenging so that
Mhm.
we can begin to shift what we're experiencing.
First the challenge, then the change, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The challenge, then the change. And this is so good. I want to welcome Dr. Jane Morgan into our conversation tonight.
Hi.
She
Hey,
did
Dr. Jane.
Hello,
Dr.
hello.
Jane. Dr. Jane is
How
a
are you?
cardiologist, just phenomenal woman. She has a show, if you're
Amazing.
following her on social media, she has a show called The Stairwell Chronicles that she started in the pandemic, just giving out information about COVID and correcting some of the misinformation around COVID-19 vaccines and all of the information that was out there. And it's become she's bec has garnered quite a following on social media, giving these stairwell chronicles around heart health and just the way we should care for our bodies and questions we should ask when we go to the medical doctors and things of that nature. So welcome, Dr. Jane
Thank
Morgan, to our
you.
conversation on tonight.
Thank
Dr. Jane, we gotten deep in
I see.
this. I mean, we're in the water. We're in the water. We
Mhm.
got a
I'm
question.
coming late to the party.
It's okay. Okay. You come on in here, girl. So Erica Johnson asked the question, what do you do when you feel there's no emotional freedom in a situation? And how do you process that?
You
So
want us to just jump in?
Yeah. Whoever.
I would ask, you can kind of swap out the words feeling for belief, right? Um, but in my work, I'll ask people, a lot of people will say, oh, I did this because I feel like, right? And really what they're describing is a belief that they have, right? And so one question I would ask is, even if you feel that way, or even if you believe this thing, is it a fact,
Mm,
right? A lot of times our feelings aren't facts. A lot of times our core beliefs, even when you ask about assumptions, right? I really tie that in with core beliefs. And so I do a lot of that work with the guys that I work with, because our core beliefs, it affects or it impacts how we view ourselves, how we view others, how we view the world, and also how we interact with people around us, right? So if I have a core belief that I don't deserve A, B, and C, right? That I am not worthy of, right? Or that people are untrustworthy. Like I just have these solid core beliefs,
mhm.
but they aren't necessarily facts,
Yeah.
right?
And
Um,
sometimes they're inner vows.
right.
They're
Yeah.
vows. I mean, even when it comes to our health, and the way we eat,
Hmm.
we say things.
Yeah.
We have these core beliefs and inner vows. I don't like this, or I don't
Right.
eat this, or I don't,
Right.
and because of that, it shapes our behavior. It's,
Yep.
you know, it
Absolutely.
it has a lot to do with how we live out, because
Yep.
we live out those things that we believe.
Yep. And we so we convince ourselves that it is a fact, right? This thing is unchanging, right? It's unmovable. And so I don't know what the situation is that you're referring to, but I would ask, one, is there anything about that situation that can be changed, right? A lot of times we can't experience freedom because of that thing that we refuse to leave or that thing that we refuse to do something about, right? And so sometimes it's okay, I can have emotional freedom if I remove myself, right? Or if I start to do things differently in this situation, right? Obviously, if it's a relationship or whatever, you may be limited. I don't know what the situation is, but sometimes we convince ourselves that we're stuck, right? I've been saying that so much. I'm going through a lot personally right now. I've cried a few tears these past few weeks, right? We're talking about transparency, and I've had to remind myself that I need to be careful of what I'm speaking, right?
Mhm.
And so in these conversations that I've been having these past couple, I keep saying, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. I keep saying that, right? But if I believe that that's a fact, if I believe I'm stuck, right, I'm not going to even try to move because it's impossible, right? I'm
Mhm.
not going to try to do anything that would get me out of these situations because I've convinced myself that I'm stuck. I've convinced myself that there is no emotional freedom, right? I've convinced myself that this is a fact when it's not the case, right? So just asking yourself, even though I feel this way, even though I have this belief, is that truly a fact? Is that real, or is that my perception of what's going on? And you can challenge perceptions. We can't challenge facts because that is what it is, but we can challenge perceptions or inaccurate core beliefs all day long.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
yeah,
make
I
sure
love
they're
that.
facts.
Oh, yeah,
And make sure they're facts. And I think, Dr. Jane, when you deal a lot in facts and beliefs and things like that. So would you piggyback on that?
sure. I was going to say, from a cardiac and from a medical perspective, when we look at when we talk about emotional freedom, really in relationships, let's talk about corporate relationships. And Time Magazine just published an article 2 weeks ago that stated that the most educated demographic in the United States of America was the Black woman, the most educated, and yet we still only earn 62 cents on the dollar for a white man. And for a physician like myself, physicians and surgeons only earn 54 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
I give a lot of talks when we look at health equity and disparities with regard to the more education that we attain as Blacks, the greater the wealth gap becomes. So, for instance, whites and Blacks, high school dropouts, a Black earns maybe $11,000 if you're a high school dropout, whereas a white person earns about $60,000. When you go all the way up to college and postgraduate level, that is the only time, this is after college, that a Black person earns about equal to what a white person who never even finished high school. But the wealth gap becomes so much greater. And what that represents is what we're talking about, the emotional freedom in relationships, especially in corporate relationships, because even though we have the training, we have the education, we have the experience, we don't get the opportunities for upward mobility. We don't get the opportunities for promotion. And so the reason you see this big gap is as people's careers season, they are promoted and rewarded for it, but we remain in our same position, although we take on more and more responsibility. We don't get paid for it and we don't move forward. And we also don't get put into positions in corporations where we are being groomed in a succession planning. And so what does HR say to you? Oh, you weren't prepared for the role. But the reason you're not prepared for the role is that the company didn't put you in a position to prepare for it. And so we know that Black women have a higher rate of heart disease because of chronic, unrelenting stress in the workplace, but also in our social and infrastructure. And Black women, mothers of Black sons, not only have the highest amount of stress, but have the highest rates of hypertension and the highest rates of heart disease for all the numbers of reasons that we have to think about, the chronic, unrelenting stress that we have to manage and navigate in our everyday lives, but somehow not bring that to work. Talk about not having emotional space to be what we need to be. We have to be something else when we're there. And that chronic stress also increases heart disease.
Chronic. Yeah. Those microaggressions and all of that. Wow, Dr. Jane, that
Wow.
puts a whole nother spin on this.
And you think about, and I say me because I want to be clear that I'm not immune. I'm a Black woman. am a physician. So they say 54 cents on the dollar. I certainly see people who've gone much further than I have in corporate America. Did I lack intelligence? Did I lack the training? Did I lack the degrees? No, but I didn't have a lot of opportunities because I wasn't really groomed. And people tend to bring people in that look like them. They have some sort of identity. And even myself, my oldest son was arrested live right on television 2 or 3 years ago while he was reporting for CNN. So these are the kinds of things when we talk about being Black mothers, but also navigating our corporate lives. It is a reason why we have fewer life years than white America. And make no mistake, money equals the number of years that you're going to live.
Wow.
The less money you have, the less number of years you're going to live. That is a fact in the United States. Money equals years lived. So these missed opportunities are
money equals years lived. Wow.
So these missed opportunities for you to go up the career ladder and actually be able to secure wealth for yourself, security for your family, better housing, neighborhoods, better infrastructural support, all of that really matters because money equals the number of years that you will live. That's a fact in the United States.
Oh my God. That right there. Oh. So then what do we do with this? I mean, this seems so, almost insurmountable. I mean, how do we move past that? How do we help one another? How do we bring one another along? Anybody?
Well, one of my mantras is that freed women, free women. That freed women, free women. That's what I share with the women at the church. My husband and I
Dr.
pastor.
Tony, I'm going to have to.
That's right. You got your group at 8:00. Debrina, thank you for joining us tonight. Debrina's gonna have to jump off. You all, we're only going to be on this a few more minutes, but Debrina has to go. She has another commitment. And we thank you for joining us tonight, Debrina, and depositing all of that rich wisdom.
Yes.
Just bring all of your sassiness.
Yeah, I have to jump off, but I wanted to just quickly.
Go ahead. We can hear you. Let's see what happened there. Debrina?
Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Now
can.
we hear you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. Yes, I apologize that I have to go to my Queen purification program, but I wanted to. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So thank you, Dr. Tony, for having me on tonight. So good being in this esteemed panel of women. But I just want to go back to Erica Johnson's question, where she talked about emotional freedom. And one, I would have Erica define, what does she mean when she uses that term? Like, break it down. What would be happening? How would she be showing up and engaging? And secondly, sure, it's not a pattern for her, because if it's a pattern, that means there's some beliefs and some healing work that absolutely need to be done, so she doesn't keep participating in a certain way in her relationships, if this is a love relationship. Secondly, is a lot of times when we say emotional freedom, we mean self-expression. So does that mean your voice has been stifled? Does that mean you are stuffing certain things instead of expressing? Does that mean you're not being heard? Does that mean you are living in silent suffering? So I just wanted to share a few of those things with Erica, since she boldly brought that up as a question, to also add to what the other women responded to it with her questions. So with that, thank you so much. I so appreciate being part of this, and just so glad to be on this journey with each of us, affecting this thing from our angle, our perspective, and our professions and careers. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Nice to meet you.
Enjoy Puerto Rico. All right, she's gonna have to leave. So I'll remove her from the thing. We're only going to be a few more minutes. Dr. Jane, I'm so glad you brought up this thing about money and it impacting the quality of our lives. My financial planner says there's nothing worse, nothing worse. What he always says, um, what's worse than dying young is outliving your money.
Oh, Jesus.
My financial planner says that he said that to us years ago. So he talked about the fact that, you know, not just what does money mean today, but what will money mean? I just turned 60, right? So what will a dollar look like when I turn 80?
Yeah.
Mm.
Right? What will
But
it
we
take
don't
for me?
necessarily have to concern ourselves with that because we don't live long enough, many of us, to even collect our retirement. So when
Mm,
you look at the road goes forward and there's a fork in the road. One is to retirement, one is to work. More Black people go left to work. We work until we die. And part
mhm,
of that is because we don't have the opportunity to accumulate the wealth along the way, regardless of how much we have prepared ourselves with education and with experience. And so
mhm,
you're right, it's terrible to outlive your money because we work until we die for the
mhm,
most part, much more so than the white race. So it's retirement is a luxury, and COVID, we certainly even lost more years from our lives. In the United States, there are 50 states in the United States. All 50 states, if you are a Black American, your life expectancy is less than a white American in all 50 states. That is not a coincidence. You cannot you cannot change your geography and get away from it. So this is the infrastructure and what we talk about, all the things that became apparent to us during this public health crisis. Those are all the things that we live every day and that are going to impact us. And oftentimes education is one of those, you know, our families will tout education, get an education so you can get a good job. That only becomes such a small slice of the pie that
mhm.
really moves you to high school dropout level. That's
Uh-huh,
as far
mhm.
as you're going to get.
So, and I got to get 15 degrees and go in debt getting those degrees
That's
and
right.
then
Mm.
work to pay off the
Right.
student loans that I got
That's
getting
right.
those degrees
Right. And
for
then you
for
won't
Bubba
be.
to just drop out of high school and make more than what I make with 5 earned degrees.
And succession planning is important in corporations. And, you know, there are some people who are in positions that are succession planning and being groomed, and others that are not. And then when you apply for roles, someone else is selected. And what do they say? They tell you the truth. Oh, this person is better prepared than you are. But why is that person better prepared? Because you prepared that person.
Mm.
That's why. The project. So just, you know, I understand, but money does equal number of years lived. And you're right. You know, it's terrible to outlive your money, but the fact of the matter is, many Blacks don't have that worry.
And do we have any opportunity to right that ship? I mean, or are we just doomed? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Juanita said
We have to right the ship. You
Right.
know,
yeah.
for
That's why we
me,
have people like
yeah.
Representative Doreen Carter.
We have to right the ship. I mean,
That's why
honestly,
we
you
have
know,
to vote.
That's
my
why we have to
business
vote.
actually is a financial education business. So I just spend most of my energy trying to help people understand money and change the way we think about money. I think, Robin, you said something earlier that I didn't
And let
realize.
me just say, let
You
me,
know, like I
Doreen,
was good
let me
and
just,
grown that I had a poverty mindset, right? And
Doreen,
so
let me,
I'm thinking I'm making good money decisions.
Doreen, let
Who
me
said?
just
I'm
say
thinking
this.
I'm making good money decisions,
Doreen, I
and
want to
I'm
say,
I'm, I'm really
can
just
you hear
acting
me?
whole.
Doreen, can you hear me? Because I want to say something here. Can you hear me,
Oh yeah, that
Doreen?
was I kept hearing. So like, am I echoing myself?
No, I want to say
Yes.
something. I want to say that I'm glad we're bringing up money because, and I want you to go back to what you were saying, because often when we talk about self care, we don't talk about money.
That's right. You should
And
have a whole show
we,
on money.
on money
On money.
because
That's
that
self-care.
impacts
That's self-love.
self-care.
Yeah.
It impacts self-care. And
Yep.
we, I mean, and
It
so
does.
And it's
are we,
hard to get.
Yep.
No matter how much
But
education
we
you
gonna
have.
go get it.
And keep hard to keep.
Right.
Too.
So Doreen,
You know,
talk to us about the work you're doing in this whole money matters, because I've been watching you.
well, I think again, it goes back to mindset, beliefs, and how we're taught, right? And I think one of the things that was said to me, like in my early 20s, the statement was, "It's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make." And so a lot of times people think they can't do budgets, they can't save. And a lot of that is because we've made decisions before we made the money.
Yeah.
And so now we have to go back and make some different decisions as we make the money. Like I was laughing at with a young lady in church. I was sitting between two ladies with these big Louis Vuittons yesterday, right? I said, "Oh, is this the Louis Vuitton, bro?" She said, "I said, girl, I just can't do it." She said, "You know, you need to stop." She said, "Let me show you his way. It's $1,300." And I'm thinking, like, I got the money. That's just not what I want to spend money on, right?
Exactly.
And so one of the things in thinking about whether, what do we want to do, where do we want to be, and so what I've been trying to teach people is to plan how to spend your money before you make the money. And so one of the phrases I've coined is take the second thought, because it's like I see, I like, I buy.
Mm,
But
Mhm.
if what I just saw, I liked that I bought, how is that going to affect the decisions I'd already made?
mm. And
So
self-care
that's
is
why,
about decisions, one decision at a time,
yes,
every day.
absolutely,
And another
absolutely.
way to approach that as well, Representative Carter, is, the same thing. You say just pay yourself first. You can do whatever you want to do to your money as long as you pay yourself first.
Mhm.
Just decide
Mm,
what you're
Yeah,
going to
but,
pay yourself,
but
and
and I
then
think some people did. Some people did that. We taught that for a while, right? You pay yourself first. Well, we taught you give, then you put some aside. But in all of that, if we're not being strategic and taking the time to think about where we want to be, and then making decisions based on that,
Mhm.
because when we get one of the other things I couldn't understand early in my career, like y'all already know I like food. So people they couldn't go to lunch throughout the week. And I just didn't understand that, but they could go to lunch on Friday. Now, how can you go to lunch on Friday, but you couldn't go on Thursday? So next week you're gonna have the same situation. So maybe when you get paid on Friday, you need to think about what your obligations are for the rest of the week. So maybe not go to lunch on Friday so you can stretch it through the rest of the week. And then not just think about that week, take the whole month. So a lot of people teach budgeting around, okay, here's what I got, here's what I spent. I'm saying no. You need to sit down and create a budget before you spend your money so that when you get paid, you already know
Yep.
what you need for the
Right.
month.
Right.
And then if you have some surplus, yeah, set some aside. But if you get to the end of the month and you don't have anything left, and you know that at the first of the month, then you begin to make better decisions.
better decision.
Because now we're thinking about planning. We think, Dr. J, we want to live, I was on the phone today with my 95-year-old cousin, and that woman looks good. I want to live like that at
I know that's
95,
right.
right?
I know that's
But
right. I just turned 60 and I plan to live. And
you
I
know
don't
what?
plan on working until I die. I plan to
That's
live
right.
until I die.
Yeah.
Right?
And the reason why you could do that is because of some of the decisions that you made and
And
some of the
and
decisions
and
that you're
some
going to
things
make going forward.
and some of the things I've decided
Oh,
I'm not gonna spend my money on, like a
right. And Dr.
$1,300.
Tony, I can't let you have that on by yourself. I turned 60 also.
Come on, you did it. You did it. I'll stop you. You came in
This
before me.
is 60
You were
club.
there to
But
welcome
yeah,
me.
but if we don't take anything else from this segment of what we're talking about money, really just if you could just sit down and look at what are you currently obligated financially with, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got rent, mortgage, utilities, you got to eat. You probably already got some credit debt and all of that. But if you take the time to look at that for the entire month and then look at your money, right? And do we have enough?
And not just for the month, but maybe the pay period. I literally have a spreadsheet where I have every week what's due, what money comes in. So I know if I got some extra, right? But that next week it may be a deficit. Then I know I got to take this week over the next week.
That's
I
right.
can't spend that.
Mhm.
And then in those periods where every week is a surplus, I don't go spend that. I put it up. So
And I'm gonna
like
tell
this
you
year,
something. I'm gonna tell you because this is Harmonize Your Life. This is holistic way of living
yeah.
and being in the world. And let me just say this. I'm gonna come back to my thought if I don't forget it. Right. So take the second thought is what Deborah caught that her father used to teach us to know the difference between need and want, and then make your decisions. Wow, that's good,
Absolutely,
Deborah.
absolutely.
Thank you for
And that's,
sharing.
I mean, yes, and that's another part of what we teach. What are need, wants, and desires, right? Because there are certain seasons in our lives that we're in need season, but we want to buy desires. And
Mhm.
there's, you know, I'm laughing at myself. There are certain things that I wasn't gonna compromise on, and it was toilet paper. I was like, I don't care how broke I am, I'm not buying cheap toilet paper. But when you start thinking about a need, what is the need? You need to wipe your butt, but does it matter whether it's Sherman or store brand? And so we want to buy luxuries when we're in the need season of our lives. And so I wanted to be able to just be free to do what I wanted to when I wanted to. So I couldn't spend all my money. And then there was a season when I was broke and we just had to do what we could, right? And so, but the whole bottom line is understanding at the beginning, who do I owe? What does it do? And how much money I make. That's just basic, simple math. I think if we can get everyone that's listening to even start there, then you can build upon that. We could talk needs, wants, desires. We could set goals. We could talk retirement. We could talk about ways we make money. We could talk tax strategies, right? But if we don't deal with those basic philosophy of just how money in, money out, if we could do that.
Yeah. And I think, Dr. Jane, when you were on, we talked about the whole heart health and eating right, and just the whole, not just the eating right, but you talked about self care beyond our eating and exercise with our heart health. And you talked about stress and things, of the microaggressions that we experience in the workplace and things that weigh on our hearts that can shorten our lifespan. Um, and so with this whole Harmonize Your Life holistic way of living and being, what I have found, and it ties in with your money, it ties in with the what we talked about with ask the questions that we ask of ourselves, and the challenging of ourselves, and growing ourselves, our character, and all of that. Asking questions like, why do I need to do this? Why do I feel like I need to spend my money on that? Who am I trying to impress? You know what I'm saying? Then when I started being more concerned about my health and wellness and eating healthy and things like that, I found out that I save more money eating at home and eating healthy than being in the streets. So not only did it impact my physical health, but my financial life changed. So it's that whole harmonizing and that holistic approach to living.
Amen.
I mean,
Amen.
I think that's what it's all about. And I think we have to bring it all full circle and tie it together and not live this disjointed life
Yep.
where my money life is over here, my relationship is over here, my spiritual life is here, my health, my self-care is here. I mean, my exercise, my eating. We have so discompartmentalized ourselves that we don't see how it all impacts. Dr. Morgan, you said if, what you said, we will not, how much money we make will determine how long we live. That, I mean, I've never heard that before.
You got to come here, come to my lectures.
That was
Put it out
revolutionary.
there.
Really. But you talk about harmonizing your life and looking at everything from a holistic approach. Man, that's revolutionary. I mean,
That's health equity. That's health equity.
Dr. Jane, I'm going to make more money.
That's right. Live longer.
That's right. Live longer. And don't outlive your money.
That's right.
Yep.
Sweet
And pay
Lord
attention.
Jesus.
Yes, yes, yes. This has been so phenomenal.
Wow.
Ladies, I am so glad y'all joined us tonight. I see so many of my friends on. Erica Johnson is in the room. She said, ask and forgiveness. Sabrina L
Amen.
is in the room. She got something out of this forgiveness work. Wow, didn't know that was a thing. Carla Sanders. Yes, a clean heart. Sheila Agnew is on. That's my friend, y'all. Sheila is 70 something, and she's been on our podcast. I mean, she is, I mean, a diva at 70. I want to say 72. Sheila, I should
Wow.
send you a link and have you come in here because she got something to say about that. Living long and all of that. Juanita is on with us. Deborah Patterson is on with us. Juanita. I think I saw Judy Kirk was on with us. And I don't know if she's still there, but Judy Kirk said, I believe as women of color, we often assume we don't measure up or we don't fit in or are not enough. We was talking about those assumptions that we make. So many of you all are on with us tonight, and I appreciate so much you being here on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations for Self-Care Talk Back conversation with our dynamic guests that are in the room with us tonight. I am so grateful that each and every one of them have been in the room with us tonight. Somebody said, Rosa Johnson said, this was great. Right. This really, really was great. You all help me thank my guests tonight. Put an emoji or something in the comments. Say something back to us and let us know that this conversation has been a blessing in your life tonight. You will be able to find this eternally on YouTube unless they censor me and pull us down. But this conversation will be uploaded to my YouTube channel immediately after we're done. It'll be there for you to go back and to share the link. We need more of this. We need more. We perish for the lack of knowledge.
Yep.
We perish.
I saw someone asked me for a clarification. Did I mean that money equals quality of life, or the number of years of your life, or the number of quality years? And I want to be clear, I'm speaking the number of years that you will live. That's independent of quality. I didn't even say they were good years. I'm just saying talking about your longevity, your lifespan. That's what I mean. I did not even begin to delve into quality of life. This is simply your lifespan, good, bad, or indifferent.
Wow. Well,
Dr. Tony, I think we better get on a mission and help the women make some more money.
Yeah, we do. We're going to work that out. We are going to work that out. Judy Kirk said, great dialogue.
Don't leave me out. Call
we
me.
should discuss faith, finance, and how this is viewed by women and people of color. All right, Judy, we'll come back to that. Deborah Patterson says, this conversation was like that chocolate cake that you eat slowly because you want to memorize and enjoy the taste. All right, just don't eat it at 8 o'clock at night.
Oh man, that's a whole nother segment.
So I'm telling you, this has been a great dialogue. Y'all, thank you all. All of you all have been guests on my podcast, and then you thought it not robbery to come back tonight, talk to each other, us dialogue together. I mean, we could do this all day long. And our guests, our audience that came on with us tonight, the women that spent their Monday night with us, we appreciate each and every one of you. And I am so delighted to be your host on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. And I look forward to more work that we will do together in freed women, free women.
Dr. Alvarado, can I say one thing? So I do Stairwell Chronicles, and I sit on the stairs and do these talks. I've been focusing on aging and the process of aging and Alzheimer's and aging with dignity and what that means. So tomorrow I will have Lou Gossett Jr., Academy Award winning Oscar winner. I will sit down with him at 6:30 on Instagram Live. He's 87 years old now, and we're going to talk about aging. But we're also, I'm a doctor. My show is about medicine. We're going to talk about his medical journey, his
Okay.
struggle with a number of things. So
Okay.
if you want to
And this
watch
is
it,
tomorrow on Instagram Live.
tomorrow, Instagram Live at Dr. Jane Morgan, Lou Gossett and I. It's called Lou and I, and we will go through his medical journey.
Okay. Y'all see her, you see her tag there at Dr. Jane Morgan tomorrow on Instagram Live
On
with Lou
Instagram
Gossett.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I'm going to chime in because I want to hear about that. I just turned 60. I need to know about aging, and I need to know how to age gracefully, and I need to know how to live long and prosper.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
Amen.
And so we're going to do that. I am so delighted. Let me just let each of you just one last word of encouragement or word of wisdom. I'm going to call your name and you just say it. And so we'll sign off with that. Robin, what's your last thought you want to share with the women tonight?
Well, I'll just finish the thought from earlier. I truly believe that freed women free women. And what I mean by that is all of us have gotten free in some area of life. And I believe once you've gotten free in a certain area of life, you have an anointing and an obligation to go back and help another sister get free. And when we begin to understand that all of us have something to offer to someone else, then we don't have to worry about shame and not thinking we measure up. No, I need some help with my mindset about finances. Let me go holler at my girl Doreen. You need some help when it comes to your mental health? Come holler at me. Somebody else can help me with style. If we all put our gifts in the table, freed women will free other women.
Thank you, Robin. Doreen?
Hey, well, thank you, Pastor Tony, for having us on here. This was really good. Look, I got a lot out of this tonight. And I think the thing that I didn't get to say that stayed in my spirit was regardless of where you find yourself on your journey or where we find ourselves on the journey, as long as we stay on the journey, God's
Yeah.
going to connect us with what we need and who we need. So tonight was amazing. And I'm in this space of all these prayers being answered and things that I just didn't even think were even still possible. And just keep living, keep going. And, I had worked on my doctorate and didn't finish it because I didn't have the money to pay those last few fees, right? But y'all, on the first Saturday in June, I'll be getting an honorary doctorate.
Oh, wow.
Keep living, keep moving, keep doing what God calls you to do. And He will connect you with who you need to be connected with.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
So
Dr.
congratulations.
Jasmine,
Yeah.
congratulations, Doreen.
Congrats.
Dr. Jasmine?
Um, uh, Again, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to have met you ladies and to have been a part of this conversation. Um, one thing that's really been important to me and helping me in this journey that I'm on, again, is just remembering God's role and what the role that He plays in this journey that I'm on. I always say I want to get to the point where I can like quote the word. How y'all do? Y'all just like, oh, in Ecclesiastes.
You ain't got to do all that.
I can't do that shit. I'm not there yet, but I know what it says, right?
Okay.
But one of my favorite scriptures, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, right? Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And so that's a promise that God has made us, right? And He's not like us. He doesn't go back on His promises. And so, for me, and I want to encourage the women listening, it's not about what I believe. It's not what about others have told me or others' beliefs about me. God has promised me this. He's promised me freedom. He's promised prosperity. And so I'm going to do my part, right? Faith without works is dead. So I'm going to do my part to get what God has for me. But that means that He also believes that we are deserving of that, right? That we are worthy of that. And so, especially if you are a believer, remember the promises that God has for you, and live your life in such a way, right? Because we don't.
Dope, honey.
Come on now. That's right, Doctor.
That's my favorite word, Dr. Jasmine. I tell women they dope all the time.
Yes, ma'am. And you got to believe. And if you don't believe it, just keep saying it until you start to. and that's fine.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Dr. Jane, one last word of encouragement or wisdom.
Yeah, I would say, follow scientific information on social media and other places. We've just come through a pandemic. A large part of the length of that pandemic was based on our own decisions and the continued development of more and more mutations and variants because the message got conflated. People are following their favorite actress and their favorite singer and their favorite chef to get science information. Does that make sense? So find a scientist like myself and others. I don't expect you to follow me to get information on, weeding your lawn. That's not why you would follow me. So then don't follow a horticulturist or something if you want to find out about science. So I want to make that clear because this pandemic has been somewhat unnecessary and malaligned. If you want to follow science, find someone who's steeped in science, who's educated in science, and follow them for that topic. Follow other experts for their topics.
Exactly.
And don't allow people to speak off topic to you.
Wow. Wow. I love
Man.
that. Oh, see, we're gonna have to come back about that. All right. Don't allow people to speak off topic. Oh, wow. 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 Well, my last thing I want to leave with everybody is first the challenge, then the change. And I think everything that we've heard tonight has challenged us in some ways. And so hopefully it will lead to some good changes in our lives and that we can truly live this harmonious life that I believe we can all live and we can help each other do it together. All right. All right, ladies, sign off here. It's been a great night. It's been a Monday evening, and I'm so glad you chose to spend it with us on the Harmonize Your Life podcast talk back. I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for having us, Dr. Tony. Bye.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.